If you live in America, you've probably used their app today. You might even have it open on your phone right now. But what you don't know is that behind their clean, minimalist Silicon Valley branding lies a multi-billion-dollar lie that affects your everyday life. My name is Maya. I'm 34 years old, and up until 6 months ago, I was just another invisible, underpaid senior software engineer at one of the biggest tech giants in San Francisco. I thought my job was just about fixing bugs and optimizing databases. But then I stumbled upon a piece of legacy code they thought they'd buried forever in their main servers. Internal memos called it Loophole 8. And the exact moment I executed that script on my terminal, my quiet corporate life ended, and a dangerous game of cat and mouse began. Let's back up a bit. If you're in your 30s trying to survive the current economic landscape in America, you already know how brutal it is. Rent for my tiny studio apartment in the Bay Area was bleeding me dry every month. Inflation was eating up my paycheck, and the constant threat of mass tech layoffs hung over my head like a pendulum. For 3 straight years, I gave that company absolutely everything. We are talking 60-hour work, cold leftover takeout at my desk at midnight, and missed family dinners, all for a stagnant salary that barely let me scrape by. While our executives bought their 3rd luxury vacation homes in Aspen, I was exhausted, deeply burnt out, and felt completely trapped in a soul-crushing corporate loop. I felt powerless, like a tiny cog in a massive, unfeeling machine. Little did I know, the power to bring that entire global empire to its knees was already sitting directly on my workstation. It happened on a rainy Tuesday night around 11:45 p.m. The entire office was pitch black, and the only light came from the blue glow of my dual monitors. I was tasked with auditing an old, dusty repository from 2018, code that supposedly hadn't been touched in years. That's when my eyes caught a strange, completely undocumented conditional statement hidden deep within the server architecture. It bypassed every single security encryption protocol we had. It was labeled simply protocol_08. As a programmer, your instinct is to dig. So I started tracing where the data traffic from this loophole was actually going. When the results populated on my screen, my blood ran cold. This wasn't a glitch or a developer's mistake. It was a deliberate backdoor built by the executive board to secretly siphon, manipulate, and monetize highly sensitive, private user data, exact data they had just sworn under oath to Congress that they never collected. They were lying to the entire public, making billions off American citizens. And they had accidentally left the digital keys in the hands of an underpaid coder who had absolutely nothing left to lose. Staring at my screen that night, I knew that just looking at the code wasn't enough. If I wanted to survive what was coming, I needed hard data. So I used my administrative clearance to clone the entire repository onto an encrypted, offline external drive. For the next 3 weeks, my life became a blur of double shifts and sleepless nights. By day, I was the quiet, submissive corporate employee, nodding along in Zoom meetings and pretending to care about the company's new wellness initiatives. But by night, in my dark apartment, I was a digital detective tracking a multi-billion-dollar crime. Loophole 8 was terrifyingly brilliant. It wasn't just tracking location data. It was actively using the phone's microphone to analyze emotional triggers in users' voices, altering their feeds to fuel anxiety, and feeding that psychological profile directly to elite political and corporate buyers. They were literally weaponizing human psychology for profit, manipulating millions of Americans without their consent. But the rabbit hole went even deeper. As I cross-referenced the data with our internal financial ledgers, I found the smoking gun. The revenue generated from Loophole 8 wasn't even going into the company's main public accounts. It was being funneled through shell companies based in Delaware, directly filling the offshore bank accounts of our CEO and top board members. We are talking about hundreds of millions of dollars of untaxed illegal wealth. Meanwhile, just 2 months prior, those same executives had stood on a stage during an all-hands meeting, fake smiling, telling us that due to macroeconomic pressures, they had to freeze all employee raises and lay off 10% of our engineering team. People with families, people who had worked there for a decade, were thrown out on the street to protect a profit margin built on illegal surveillance. The hypocrisy was nauseating. I wasn't just angry anymore. I was disgusted. That's when the paranoia started to set in. In the tech world, you are never truly anonymous. One Thursday morning, I walked into the office, and my heart dropped into my stomach. My team lead was standing by my desk alongside 2 men in tailored suits from corporate security. They said there had been an unusual data spike traced back to my employee credentials. They confiscated my company laptop right then and there and told me I was being placed on paid administrative leave pending an investigation. As I walked out of that building onto the cold streets of San Francisco, my hands were shaking. They didn't know exactly what I had copied yet, but they knew someone was digging. I realized right then that I had a target on my back. I had 2 choices: take a massive severance check to buy my silence, or burn the entire house down. Sitting in my apartment with my company laptop gone, I knew my time was running out. Corporate management wasn't just going to delete the files. They were going to remove me from the industry, freeze my credentials, and use their high-priced legal teams to tie me up in court for years. In America, when you stand up to a major tech organization, you aren't just fighting a brand, you're fighting a massive network of influence. But looking at that encrypted drive on my desk, I thought about my colleagues who were laid off, and the millions of ordinary citizens whose privacy was being monitored daily. I realized that remaining silent made me just as responsible as the leadership team. So, I took the drive to a crowded public space, accessed a secure connection, and shared the complete dataset with federal regulatory oversight groups and mainstream press outlets. Simultaneously, the next morning, the digital space completely shifted. Major financial news channels and national publications all featured the exact same breaking headline: Internal analysis reveals tech giant's unreported data system. The organization's stock value dropped by 15% within the first few hours of trading, removing billions in market valuation instantly. But the leadership team didn't take it quietly. Within 24 hours, their public relations department went into overdrive. They launched an aggressive campaign to alter public perception and discredit my professional background. They shared modified employment reviews with reporters, claiming I was an underperforming employee who was acting out of frustration. I had independent creators and media personnel waiting outside my building, trying to get a statement every single day. My phone kept receiving calls from hidden numbers, leaving stressful messages. It felt like a multi-billion system was pressing down on me, but the records I shared were too accurate and clear. They couldn't bypass the facts this time. 3 weeks later, an official investigation was initiated, and our executive director was requested to answer questions before a live-streamed independent panel. Watching that billionaire, the same person who told us the economy was too weak to give regular employees a standard racet struggle. Under the bright lights, as panel members reviewed my lines of code on large screens, was completely surreal. He kept repeating standard corporate phrases, but the evidence of Loophole 8 was visible to everyone watching. I had brought transparency to a very private corporate world. I didn't get an award or my old position back, but for the first time in my 34 years, as an ordinary underpaid specialist, I had stood my ground against a giant enterprise and watched the balance of power shift. It's been 6 months since that congressional hearing. If you're wondering where I am now, I no longer live in San Francisco. The tech industry in the Bay Area essentially blacklisted me, which didn't surprise me at all. Corporate loyalty is a one-way street, and once you break their code of silence, they lock the doors behind you. I packed my life into a few boxes, left California, and moved to a quiet town in Oregon. I traded my high-stress corporate cubicle for freelancing and helping small nonprofits secure their networks. I make significantly less money now, and my life is far more modest. But for the first time in my entire adult life, when I look in the mirror every morning, I don't feel like a soulless cog in a predatory machine. I sleep peacefully at night knowing that I chose my integrity over their blood money, and no corporate severance package could ever buy that feeling. But I didn't tell you my story just to complain about a corrupt tech giant. I told you this because my story is a mirror for the world we are currently building in America. We live in a society that worships billionaires, celebrates hustle culture, and tells you that your human worth is entirely defined by your job title and your productivity metrics. We allow massive corporations to manipulate our attention, exploit our privacy, and treat us like digital livestock all while they underpay the very hands that build their empires. They want us to feel small. They want us to believe that we are completely powerless against the weight of their capital. But Loophole 8 proved the exact opposite. It proved that the entire towering corporate structure is surprisingly fragile because it relies on ordinary people to keep running. You are sitting at your desk right now, feeling trapped and exhausted by a system that demands everything and gives back nothing. Remember this. You are not powerless. The executives at the top only have power because we give it to them through our silence and our compliance. You don't need a multi-million-dollar budget to make a difference. Sometimes all it takes is one person who refuses to look the other way. The next time a giant corporate machine tells you to compromise your morals for a paycheck, look them in the eye and remember that you hold the real keys to the castle. Don't let them buy your soul, because at the end of the day, the most dangerous thing you can ever encounter in this world is an ordinary person who has absolutely nothing left to lose.